Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Here is a Q&A clip in response to someone asking about this question again. So I'm attaching the Q&A clip from a recent live stream session to the public on Q&As, all things Social Security. So take a listen. There might even be some extra tagged onto it of a different video, so you don't have to go searching for it. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
I see Ronnie B. Ronnie B. I'm under SGA, but they gave me a raise. Will that affect all my SSDI? Oh, it could. I would say be careful of raises. Be careful what you wish for. It's another reason to always be careful with your hours. Don't flirt with the SGA line because raises, picking up an extra shift here and there, can completely turn you into SGA and defeat everything at a huge cost compared to the few extra bucks you got from doing it. Yep, raises can definitely curb your CCU if you're not paying attention. All right. If you're that close, if you've been flirting that close with the SGA line, you have to take note, and I'll be cutting those hours back, or getting a different job that pays less. I mean, it sounds wompy, but I'd like to keep the higher pay and work less hours, right? So you're still maybe bringing in 1,500, doing the accommodated job, but you're not risking your SSD, right, Ronnie?
Hey, so if the subject matter of the video you just listened to is of interest and you want more on it, stay tuned. Here's another one about the same topic, but a little bit different. Bye now. Hey, so let's address the question you might have if you're applying for Social Security Disability or SSI about you're feeling the need that you have to try to go back to work in some shape or form because you need to pay bills. And as we all know, sometimes these SSD and SSI cases can take a really long time. And there's no way to know whether you're just going to be fast or be one of the ones that take a really long time. There's too many wild cards. So here's how I look at it. First of all, I think it's great if you can go to work part-time. I would say this is true even after you win, as long as you do it carefully and do it within the rules and don't do anything less than you would otherwise be doing when it comes to your medical treatment, both while you're fighting an SSD case and after you've already won because of the whole future continuing disability review you're going to undergo. So it's always important to be having your focus always on your medical treatment and keeping it vigorous while you endeavor to do other things as well to make the rest of your life have as much quality as possible. So when your case is pending, I would suggest, first of all, you're going to talk to your representative, right? Because there's certain jobs that could put a difficult light on your claims. So you don't want to have any job that kind of belies what you say you can't do. I mean, if you say you can't stand and walk long, you don't want to have a job that you have to be on your feet for. If you say you can't sit long, you don't want to have a job that you're sitting all day. But aside from that, there are some hard, fast rules that you're going to want to pay attention to. The hardest, fastest rule, of course, is SGA, Substantial Gainful Activity. We have videos on those. In 2023, that amount was $1,470 per month gross. That means before your taxes, if you're a W-2, or if you're self-employed, that would be the amount before taxes, but after you take out your applicable business expenses, when we do our Schedule 3s as self-employed people. And anyone who's not a W-2 but is earning money, whether they get a 1099 or not a 1099, but they're supposed to be reporting everything that comes into their bank account or into their hand, you generally have business expenses that you write off before you get to the bottom line on your tax return as to what you're going to be taxed on, right? So $1,470 in 2023. In 2024, it was just announced this week, and I put a video out, cost of living increase for primary insurance amounts in general, but also an increase to SGA. It's going to be $1,550 in 2024. So that means you're going to be able to earn a little bit more without going over SGA. So SGA is Substantial Gainful Activity. If you're earning more than that, and it's a month-by-month basis, and sometimes there's an averaging out, but generally look at it as month-to-month for the most part. If you're, by and large, earning $1,470 or more, you're going to want to probably not apply until you drop that down. Because when they ask you the question, are you earning more than $1,470 a month, or are you earning that amount per month or more? Obviously you can't lie. That would be big bad, right? And as soon as they see, yes, you are earning more than 1470 or up to 1470 and above, you will have to be canceled because that's step number one of the sequential evaluation process. So you should go see that video if you want to see all the steps that your case has to go through. It's like a little true false trade. And you have to get to the side of award, not denied in any particular step before that. So 1470's SGA. If you're earning it at the time they make a decision, it's going to be a denial. It has to be because you lose at step one. However, that's not to say, let's say SSA does encourage people to try to work. So even with your pending claim, it would be denied. What I would do is appeal if I think there's a decent chance, and not a certainty, but a decent chance that I'm not going to be able to sustain that level of work and it's going to be dropping under the 1470, then you would appeal. And by the time they're looking at an appeal, you're no longer working at 1470. So that would no longer be a step one denial on appeal. You still have to prove everything else. This is why it's really important to be really vigorously treating big and small impairments. I have a video on that. For those of you that think it's only your big bad one that took you out of your last job, that is not the case. The other number I would look at, though, if you can, is the TWP number, trial work period amount. That's lower than SGA. Your case won't be denied for that reason, that amount on initial, even if you're working it. And that amount, by the way, in 2023 was 1050. And I think in 2024, it's going up to 1110. So it went up like $60. You're not SGA, so it's not like you're proving yourself to be undisabled. But the trial work period, which starts the second you have a month over the 1050, it's a really great period. It's a little protective. You can earn, you're allowed to try to work and earn a full-time massive income, and you get up to 9 months to do that. Not 9 months in a 9-month period, 9 separate months in a 5-year period. So once you hit the 9th month, even if it's 4 years up to the first month, because you were going up and down, your trial work period is over. And the beauty of the trial work period is that they generally can't look at your work you're doing in those 9 months or during that period to find you not disabled based on the work, because you were trying it. Doesn't mean you were succeeding. But the second that 9 month happens in that 5-year rolling window, you are no longer in your trial work period. And now they can look at the work you're doing and say, that doesn't look like a disabled person to me. You know, even if you drop down now below SGA after your 9 months and you're not making an amount that would monetarily bar you, they can look at the substance of the work you're doing and realize that she's baling hay at a farm. I do not think she has a bad back anymore. So TWP is a good thing to preserve as a general rule. So I would say most people I know that go back to work part-time successfully after they've prevailed, or even before they prevailed, they're under SGA and they're fine. Their work is, and we review it, you know, and I give them my input. Their work is demure, genteel. It's not contradictory to their impairments that they alleged. You wouldn't be doing heavy lifting with a bad back. If you claimed you couldn't walk and stand very long, then you're not going to be doing a light job, which entails a lot of time on your feet and lifting up to 20 pounds. But here are some other things that I think, if you're going to be working that part-time, in addition to, I really believe you should stay under that 1050 just to preserve your TWP, because once you've used that all up, you are more vulnerable upon review and stuff like that. So my thought is, and these are more of the optical things, my ideal scenario of someone successfully working while their claim is pending, and this would also apply to after they win, but I was directing this at some of my clients who are like, I gotta save my house, I have to earn something. There are optics, it's just common sense. You know, being under SGA or TWP, if you're working 35 hours and you're getting paid such a little bit per hour that you are under SGA, it's still a losing battle because you just showed you could work all those hours, even if you're not getting paid adequately for it. So I always ideally want to see no more than 15 hours a week. That's me. I'm cautious. But of course, you have to do the math too, because that has got to keep you under the amount that you decided you were not going to earn over, whatever advice you take or don't take. So I like to see 15 or less hours. I like to see non-full day shifts. If you can pull out, let's say you pulled out 3 8-hour shifts, 24 hours part-time, you're under SGA, you just showed that you can do 8-hour day. I mean, that's a full-time day and a full-time day and a full-time day, 3 of them. Now, granted, it's not all 5, but I think, and it might be killing you, but there were like, what you say about it killing you when you get home is not going to hold a lot of water because you're doing it. If you can manage to do more like a 4 or 5-hour shift, 3 days a week. I like to see short shifts. I also like to see alternative days so that like in between each shift day is a day off to rest that body. If you feel that you need to rest that body because that day isn't the easiest thing in the world for you, then walk the walk. Try to get the jobs with the other flex schedule or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It could be that it's 3 5-hour shifts and they're like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You're still getting a 4-day rest period. So that's something else. I think I prefer the alternate, but I know that you can't always control the employers and what they need. So those are the things that kind of objectively, but for optics purposes, I think are helpful because they will help represent the limitations you have to working like a full-time normal schedule, like the 8-hour days, the 5 days a week. If you have a lot of doctor's appointments, that probably wouldn't work anyway, because you'd be calling out for doctor's appointments all the time. But those are the things. If you have mental health impairments, let's say you have some anxiety, maybe because of your impairments, maybe because you're not earning so much. I mean, it can be circumstantial. Maybe I would probably think the job that you wouldn't be getting would be a high-end, high-skilled job, maybe like you used to have, but something a little reduced in thinking necessities, maybe more 1-2 step, it's going to be lower paying, but you can't earn that much anyway, right? So if you were, a high-skilled nurse before, but you're saying you don't have a lot of concentration and you're lose focus, probably being a nurse, even very, very part-time, 1 shift a week for 3 hours, because I know they get paid a lot per hour, so you don't want to breach your SGA or your TWP. That could be showing that you still have those mental capacities and they could be transferred to something less arduous than nursing or floor nursing. Now, arguably, of course, the realities are, well, I can concentrate for 3 hours, but once I start getting tired, it leaves me. And I get that. And I know that that's a reality. But we're trying to persuade people who are particularly cautious and protective of doling out awards. So, we try to make it as easy as possible for them to see what we see. So even though it's probably true, some people can do high-end work for a few hours, they just can't do it full-time anymore. And I get that, but that won't necessarily be the conclusion of the adjudicator on the other side. So I usually suggest getting that low stress filling part-time job if you need to work, as opposed to the high-end. It's not necessarily so, but it's just something to think about, because I do know people, and I've had people who did consulting. They did it very sporadically. It would be like a 4-hour gig every 3rd month at a very high rate of pay, but it kept them, they were still under SGA because it was only 1 4-hour gigger and it was high-end stuff, but it was only that 4 hours. And I think the 4 hours might have been spread out because it was like consulting work, so they could have been done 1 hour. And then their brain is tired and they go and do the other one. So anyway, give it some thought. If you have a representative and you are going to try to work part-time, speak to them first. I know some are going to say, don't do it. It's easier for all of us and easier for your case if you don't do it. But on the other hand, I think a lot of adjudicators and ALJs are not. I think they appreciate a person who has a hardworking history and then they're disabled for a bit and not working, and then they try to go back at it again. It does show the work ethic, and maybe it shows a little bit of the personality. That might not be the personality that you have to fear is pulling one over. So I think trying to work can be, positively represented, in front of a decision maker, a judge or a adjudicator at the DDS. I am losing my voice. Anyway, working part-time while your claim is pending, it is very possible. It's just something you got to be very careful about. You can't dilly-dally. You can't close your eyes and start picking up shifts. And if it's a tip-paying job, be very careful. You you're gonna have a good, unless you're aiming for $500 a month and you're not gonna get another 1,000 in tips. You're just aiming for very low. The chances of you breaching SGA and of course TWP is very high. I see it all the time. Because you don't know when someone wants to give you a nice big $100 tip for Christmas when they had a cup of coffee or whatever you're doing. All right. So that's that. If you have any questions, just post them below. All right. Bye, guys.